So we discussed like what is corporate governance last time. So the meaning of corporate governance, and we just using the example of Korean Air crash and Asian Air crash a few years ago. We thought that the crash of that airplane was partly by the miscommunication within the cockpit. That miscommunication also because of the like governance system, right? The pilot, co-pilot, and navigator should cooperating each other to fly the plane safely to the destination. But in that crash, we find that somebody suspect that, investigators suspect that probably the main pilot tried to dominating the operation of the airplane. That's why nobody really can say something on the main pilot's mistakes during his or her flying. So corporate governance simply say that how, like within company's perspective, it is about how a lot of stakeholders can have a very good relationship. So that's, I think, the definition that you can see from many textbooks, right? How stakeholders, especially manager, employees, shareholders, and like community, for instance, and even like many other players outside the organization maintain quite a good relationship in very harmonizing way. So by doing so, the company can be a better company, right? Making more profit, right? Bring a lot of happiness to the shareholders. So that's the definition probably of the corporate governance. Simply say, that's like definition from our textbook or lots of literature, right? How to maintain the right relationship, right? Good relationship among many stakeholders. So every country does have different ideas on that topic, on that questions. And also every country does have different policies on that issues. But actually you can interpret corporate governance in this way. Who owns the company, right? Who owns the company? That's true. That is really, when you say corporate governance or when you read corporate governance, the meaning of it is like who owns the company, right? Who owns the company? If I ask you, who owns the company? Like Division of International Study, right? Like kind of organization, right? Group of people together, more than 200 plus students are belonging to now Division of International Studies. Who owns the DIS? Right. Exactly the same here, DIS. Who owns DIS? There is a students. Probably students, you pay the tuition, right? Right. You officially admitted to this department, so you are kind of a shareholders, right? So you may be a member of stakeholders of DIS. So do you think that students own DIS? What about, like, on the other hand, the professor and also and administration together? You can consider this kind of a management, right? So do you think that professors and administration office, do they own DIS? Or do you think that Seongdong province, Seongdong-gu, right? Seongdong-gu. Do you think that Seongdong-gu owns DIS? Or do you think that the real owner of the university, right? The, like say, for instance, like central office of the Hanyang. Do you think that that central office owns DIS? Who owns DIS? That is actually the same question of like corporate governance. Just think DIS as a organization, company. Who owns it? Every country does have very different ideas, right? Like, do you think that students, you guys own DIS? Yeah? The question is, you can argue, like, anyone here can be the owner of DIS, or somebody here say, all of us here may own DIS. we just don't know what's the right answer. But the question is this one. You have to make sure to know this one. Like the nature of humans are very selfish, right? So let's say that students are the owner of the IS. Then do you think that the IS will be a better department? Right? Probably if you are the owner of the IS, probably you may modify the curriculum of the IS easier to yourself, right? So if you make the policy like all students get A, right? All students just pass without taking exam, who knows? You may make that kind of a policy, right? So because human natures are pretty much selfish, so you may design the policy for yourself. What about like if professors or administrations are really the owner of the IS? Then probably this group may design the policy in favor of ourselves here, right? Like raising the tuition by like 3 times more. So we gather more money, so we build a more new building, more facilities, and so on. So we may make the policy simply for the benefit of ourselves. Our salary may be increasing far more, so nobody knows, right? So all of us here, if Songdong-gu may be the owner of the IS, probably the campus here, the room here may be full of ajumma kids or just like becoming like public place, right? So the point here, all of us here, whether they right or wrong, pretty much is selfish. So the point is that they should be controlled, monitor each other. Otherwise, the DIS will be going down, right? We may close our business. So the meaning of corporate governance is simply asking who owns the company, right? For that questions, lots of countries does have a very different ideas. Like if you ask Japanese people, for instance, if you say Japanese workers, if you ask them who owns the company, probably they may answer. If you say American, who owns the company, they may answer. Korean as well. But their reply are all different because regarding that ownership of your firms or organization, people from across all different countries does have totally different ideas. Like Japan, for instance, very classic example. I think we know very well, like very recent time, like during the past few years, we saw a collapse of lots of Japanese global companies, like Sony, for instance. Do you know what happened to the company? Sharp, do you know what happened? Or whatever you name of Japanese company, like especially in electronic business. Like Sony could be the example. Like when I was like the college students, like Sony means really means a lot. Sony means quality, reliability, good service, and Sony means like fashion in that specific consumer specific market. But those fame just simply gone in very recent years by like Samsung or LG and so on. Why Sony suddenly fell down? Probably the Sony may be lazy in like developing the new technology or too complacent for what they have, ignore what other competitors do. But the problem was corporate governance, right? If you ask, like, if the competitors, if your company face a lot of competition or face a new market situation, then the company should do something, right? Should do something to get over that lots of challenges from the market. But if you ask Japanese firm like Sony, if you ask who owns the company, then people there may probably say employees owns the company. Employees owns the company. So the good part for this kind of a concept is that when economy was quite good, when the company is quite rolling well, then since all of the employees does have a kind of ownership, so they work hard, do their best for the companies. However, when companies are under kind of difficult period, then the problem of this Japanese types of governance system or corporate governance concept is that nobody really tried to do first, try to show leadership to get over that kind of a difficulty. The Japanese corporate governance system is what we call a, how can you say, corporate capitalism. If you look inside the ownership structure of Japanese firm, lots of other companies actually owns the companies. And also the power of employees also very strong in the companies, right? Like in Korea, for instance, Korea is pretty much owners capitalism or owners capitalism. That's how like Korean capitalism or corporate governance systems are different from Japanese. So in Korean case, owners or dominant shareholders tend to actually control and own the whole companies. So in a time of risk, the owners try to show kind of a leadership to overcome that difficulty. However, for Japanese case here, no one tried to show strong leadership in that difficult time. So even the firm may feel kind of a risk or a time of turning down. Nobody tried to be at the front to lead the company in the right direction. So like having the ideas of who owns the company, that is quite important questions. Like Korean company case, a lot of people still think that owners own the companies. So owners capitalism. We know a lot of negative side for that one. However, in the time of like turbulent or risky time period, that owners capitalism or owner focused corporate governance system may be helpful to help your firm out of the chaos, while the Japanese types of corporate governance, what I call a corporate capitalism, may be good for the firms in good time, but not good for the firms in bad times. Like Sony case, when the company was very good, no problem, but when the companies need to change or restructure themselves, they couldn't have any leadership because Japanese thought that all of us are actually owns the companies and nobody tried to be the first or at the front to change the company when the firm in very difficult time. So I will talk about later like how then corporate governance systems are different between say among Japan or Germany or Korea. So upon the questions who owns the company, right? How to maintain the right relationship. All of the countries certainly does have a very different ideas. Having said that, so this are what we are going to say today. Yeah, this one, right? As you see the slide, the government gives the approval to your organization, right? Say you are officially registered as what you call a firm. So by having that, say, simply say kind of a approval or certification, now your firm has a right as a firm, right? So shareholder, since has that right, now determine their representatives by pointing out the board of directors. We learned that like about 10 to 15 members out of selected by shareholders become the BOD members, right? So that BOD members, 이사회 in Korean, BOD actually does have a lot of right and obligation and duties, among which selecting the top management, CEO, and choosing the top manager's, say, compensation, also determined by the BOD, and also the board of directors is also doing kind of an advisory role if management, CEO, probably confused for their or difficulty in making some decision for the company's future, then the BOD may be helping the firm, the management to solve the right decision. And the top management select, hire employees. So that is kind of a structure of, say, corporate governance. By having this structure, people, countries believe that the company can be managed rightly and safely and correctly. The important thing here is the role of the BOD, 이사회, right, board of directors. The leader of BOD is what you call a chairman, right? And mostly that BOD meetings, BOD does have also very small meetings, what you call a committees. So by having that committee, they determine lots of things which are mostly related to the CEO's job. But the point here again, if these mechanisms of governance working well, wish to be working well, then probably the BOD here do the right things. They should be smart enough to control, monitor, or giving the advice to top management here. But in fact, it is not. The management, especially the top manager, tend to dominating all about the operation and information of the firms, while the BOD does not have that full access to the company's internal management, so that in reality, in practice, the BOD may be pretty much far away from what's going on of the firms. So the managers tend to be much more knowledgeable than BOD. So the function of giving advice or the function of, say, monitoring by the BOD probably very weak and less powerful in real practice. Lots of cases, for instance, like a major decision of a firm. What would be the major decision of a firm in your opinion? Like a vast amount of investment, right? Like billion-dollar investment in other country. That can be the major decision, right? Again, that decision should be approved by the board of directors. But since you are the person who has lots of the company's information and ideas of the investment, certainly the BOD, members of BODs are pretty much persuaded by what you are saying here, right? Obviously. Like a very classic example, like mergers and acquisitions. What is mergers and acquisition? So a company buy other companies, right? 인수합병. That's what we call mergers and acquisition. A huge decision, right? To buy or just think of ourselves here. To buy this or not. To buy that or not. Very tricky questions. Every day you change your mind. Just like that, company also keep changing their mind. To buy this company or not. To buy this company or not. So the cost of that purchase of the firm mostly more than $1 billion, 수조, right? So very vast amount of money actually you have to spend. And if you make a wrong judgment, like you buy the wrong company at the wrong time, then simply your company just disappear, right? So the BOD should give that, in that case, give the advisory kind of a role to the firms, the top management. But again, they are not that knowledgeable that much. So most of the case, it will be solely the decision by the top management. Like Hewlett-Packard purchased Compaq, the same computer companies, like more than 10 years ago, I think. The Hewlett-Packard went by the Compaq. The cost was probably more than like 5 billion, more than OJO, huge amount of money, right? OJO was like the cost of like medium-sized car companies. So the Hewlett-Packard tried to buy Compaq to increase their market share, market power, establish more customers, but shareholders rejected. The shareholders thought that ideas of expanding the market share is quite good, but spending that much money is not really good. It may damaging the financial status of the firm, so they rejected. However, the CEO of Hewlett-Packard just pushed SG1. So the company, finally, HP purchased the Compaq. What happened later, next? HP, not collapsed, but almost on the verge of bankruptcy. Right? So even though the HP purchased the company, the company couldn't really manage the acquired firms after their purchase. Like also a lot of failure companies, for instance, business failure, for instance. If you look at like inside the story there, you see lots of conflict between BOD and management, but mostly the management win because they are taking actually a steering wheel. They are the drivers, right? The both BODs are simply pretty much like the passengers, right? So mostly managers win upon the key decision making, but when the case of decision making where two parties conflict a lot each other, then the result also shows very much not good. Right? So let's talk more about then another issue, separation of ownership from control. Again, the goal of our company, your company, is manage the company right? So that shareholders get a lot of return. Community receive lots of benefit, right? How can you do that? One of the issue is that since these two groups may or may not have agreeing each other, or cause lots of trouble sometimes. So you may thought, what if just one body play the same role of this one? Just like a lot of Korean companies, right? A lot of Korean companies, the chairman of the board and the top management are exactly the same person, right? Who owns the Samsung Group? 이병철 회장, 누구지? 이건희 회장님, right? He is owner, but who managed the Samsung Group? 이건희 회장님, right? 회장님, right? So he owns, he controls, he manages everything. So I'm not saying that it's bad or good. A lot of European companies are just like Samsung. A lot of European companies, if you look at the example there, lots of leading European firms are family-run companies. I've told you, like BMW, for instance. Also, this morning I just saw the newspaper from 매일경제, like one of the very good success case of family-run companies. I mean, lots of textbooks that we use, written in English, published in USA or UK, right? Those countries not really pretty much dislike that family-run types of organization, but in Asia and Europe, a lot of family-run. Family-run means same BOD and management, top management, run the company very much successfully. So actually, the answer is actually yours. You can, you may have your own ideas on that question. But the point is, really a lot of studies and controversy going on is actually this area. Which one is really, really better? Dividing it between owners and manager, or it doesn't matter? So what is a better governance system? Very hot topics. I think in our textbooks are by the USA scholars, so he strongly support the division of between owners and managers. But I can truly say there's no hard evidence on that argument, right? But anyway, our exam will be on our textbook. So if you just cannot determine your mind, just follow the textbook, okay? So I add a new slide for that part because our textbook briefly skipped some of the important concepts. So again, the point again is whether dividing or not, right? That is actually for the purpose of the benefit of the firms, right? How can you build better companies if you looking at the governance structures? So people thought that if truly, if you look at like up and down of the firms, certainly you may think that that's the problem of the company's strategy, planning things and so on. But more important thing is that wrong company certainly does have a wrong governance system, right? Family collapse. Not because simply your father lost your job, lose his job, or your mother ran away, or whatever. Simply family collapse, the governance system inside the house collapsed. That's the matter. The economic things, decision-making things, matter of a second actually. Just like that, kind of an explanation here also try to show us how can we then maintain the company in a pretty much strong and in wealthy way. So as you see here, in academic field, there are actually two groups that you can maintain the sustainability of your firms, right? Maintain longevity of your firms, make your firms live longer. The scholars say that there are two ways. The first one is here. Can you see? Sorry. I just quoted this, adapted this one from other textbooks. There is two types of making the right corporate governance so that you can build a sustainable companies. You may choose internal mechanism, or you may choose external mechanism. So we will look at what they are. A lot of European firms, lots of Korean firms, Japanese firms as well, rely on the internal governance mechanism. By adopting this kind of ideas, companies in Asia, Europe think that they can maintain the healthiness of the firms longer period of time. While the USA or UK, they are pretty much balanced each other. between these two, external and internal. So the point is, you have to understand then what is internal governance mechanisms and what is the external governance mechanisms. A lot of like policy by government, 지배구조, right? If you governance-related policies are pretty much talking about these things. Let's look at one by one. Before saying that, any question? Before explaining this one, let me just briefly outline what this means. So internal governance mechanism simply means that by having clear division and role between BOD and management, the company become more sound and healthy. That's the point here, which is quite right. So family run or not is actually refuting the ideas here. Some family run companies are very successful, which means that even though they strongly they didn't divide the ownership and control, they were pretty much successful. So some companies think that we don't need that kind of internal governance system. Like Japanese firm, for instance. Not really strong division between owners and 이사회, board of directors and managers, Koreans as well. So internal governance mechanism simply means try to giving a very clear cut and firm roles and responsibility and authority between stakeholder, the board of directors and management. So simply lots of ideas here are separation of between owners and managers. While the external governance mechanism means that you just simply open up the market. Right? So if your firms are running bad because of the internal problem or whatever problem, then other company can buy you. Right? 인수합병. So it simply means that if your family is doing pretty bad, then your neighborhood may simply buy all of your assets. So your ownership simply transfer from yours to theirs. M&A. So like in Korea, for instance, or a lot of Europe, the M&A pretty much nowadays relaxed. You can try that M&A, but not as much as a USA or UK. In USA and UK, we can radically say that you can buy any company if you want, if you have enough cash or if you have enough, say, your friends, for instance, that may help you. But in Korea or Europe, for instance, like Germany, for instance, buying other company in hostile way or sometimes friendly way, not that easy because of lots of restriction by the policy there. So, however, in USA, if your company doing bad, so if a lot of stakeholders are suffering, then it's okay because some other good company may conquer you. So that is actually if the government promotes that kind of a policy, then there is no worry, right? The stakeholder, yeah. What?
M&A only the only solution for external governance.
Yeah, when you say external governance mechanism, that means, yeah, M&As. You allow M&As, right?
But you said there are some drawbacks of M&A, that there are some possibility when we do M&A, they could fail.
That is actually, yeah, that's private issue. From the government perspective, yeah, very good questions. So anyway, the market is quite open. Like in Korea, let's say that your friend is wrong, then you can buy your friend's asset or whatever. That's free in USA or UK, but not in Korea. Let's say that your friends are now, say, bankrupt, and your friend's shareholders are suffering. Then you can help your friends by buying her assets, by integrating each other. But that is not really conveniently always done in Korean market, because the government imposed a lot of like, say, restrictions, what kind of side effect and so on may be occurring. But but after you actually buy your friend's asset, and if you fail again, that's your problem. Right? That's not so. You try to buy your friend's company means you have the confidence, right, to help your friends, to rebuild your friend's company and so on. Right? Without that like confidence, why you try to buy your friends or the company is in trouble. See? So I think these are pretty much the example. That's why. So DIS supposed to use like English literature textbooks. So lots of ideas are pretty much USA or UK based examples, which may not really the case in Korea. But anyway, we need to learn about this one because Korean markets are getting more similar to the Anglo-Saxon style. Like benefit of independent chairman, what does this mean, right? The benefit of separation, right? Benefit of the separation, right? The clear separation of responsibility, that's the major benefit, right? So CEO do only management while the chairman taking care of shareholders or take the risk. So by dividing the role each other, then each one, CEO and chairman and BOD can focus on what their original role. However, what's the disadvantage? Like textbook, our textbook described that separation is good, but not really in real case. As you see here, literally, you can separate between owners and manager, but it can be simply like artificial separation. And also another problem is this one, duplication of leadership. Like a firm in chaos, just like I think classic example. Do you know what is Xerox? Xerox. Am I pronouncing right? Xerox, the copy machine, right? So, do you use that Xerox still? Yeah, I think a lot of people now the company is now doing very fine, but I think like 60s or 70s, copy machine all around the world is actually made by Xerox. Right? So they just dominating everything. But suddenly the company went down because of the Japanese competitors. So to get back their like number one position, what Xerox did was the management of the Xerox say that we have to make another business. We have to do another business, like inkjet printer or scanner and so on. So that's the ideas of top management. While the BOD, as you say, USA companies strictly divided between owners and managers. And the owners at the time strongly rejected ideas. Instead, they say we have to focus more on what we have done, like a copy machine. So there was actually conflict. Right? The management tried to do other business for the firm, while the shareholders argue, stick to what we have done. So that conflict prolonged over and over again. Because of that dispute, simply the Xerox lost their timing, and in the meantime, the Canon and other Japanese copy makers jumped into the market. So simply that internal conflict actually destroyed the Xerox competitiveness. Simply means two leaders in the firms under the condition of chaos or risky situation. That may be the part of the problem. Like Korean firms, for instance, you may be pretty much disagree, but Korean firms are really, really good at get overing the risk, like financial crisis, right? Or like Lehman Brothers crisis, like a few years ago, and financial crisis, 1997. Like lots of companies are suffering for many years, but Korean companies simply overcome that difficulty in just 3 years. Like Hyundai or a lot of Korean major firms simply bankrupt, but in 2 or 3 years, just they get back to normal because strong leadership, not any kinds of duplication, right? So, as I told you earlier, Korean firms pretty much owners capitalism, right? Owners control the company, everything. That means in time of risk, may be good for the firms to overcome. So the division between manager and owner may be causing leadership problem. That also causes inefficient decision making because the leadership are shared. So a lot of problem here. So please don't think that the division is always a good idea. Okay, let's have a break and then we go back to then why, whether you like it or not, why the issue of separation, integration keep coming up in the real world. Why that really matter in real management? Because if you see this, what I call agency cost, probably you may be in trouble in deciding whether separating or integrating and so on. So we can talk about this one. So back to our topic here. Let's say that you are now chosen as a representative of shareholders, right? So you are now BOD members. And you have to now determine, do I run the company by myself or do I hire a professional manager, what I call a CEO? So which one is better strategy for the benefit of your firm? So that is the questions. Again, when you actually hire the professionals, what I call CEO, you have to think about a lot of potential risk from that choice. I'm not saying that hiring CEO is a bad choice, but when you actually make the choice, you always have to think about pros and cons, advantage and disadvantage. If you determine to hire a CEO, a professionals, then the first thing that you have to seriously consider is a managerial opportunism here, which means that the hired CEO may act or do the firms, manage the firms for the benefit of themselves, not for the benefit of shareholders. What does this mean? Hire work for himself or herself, not for the company and shareholders. What does this mean? But simply, if you are chosen as a CEO, what's your goal? Happiness of shareholders, make the company's benefited. That may be the goal of you as a CEO, but try to be honest here. Right? What's your goal?
Profit.
Profit? Which profit?
Profit.
Shareholder profit? Really?
My own profit.
Your own profit in terms of what?
Monetary.
Money. Right? You wish to receive lots of salary to yourself, or you wish to take that position as long as you possible. Certainly as long until you die, right? But if you see like the tenure of the CEO, do you know how much the CEO actually take the position on average? Like Korea, for instance? What? What?
2 years.
2 years, yeah, about 2 or 3 years. A very good manager may do the CEO for 10 years, but that's quite a rare case. But on average, like 2 or 3 years as a CEO, and mostly they leave, right? So you're certainly another kind of goal, kind of a goal hidden is you try to take a lot of money, earn a lot of money, but also you take that position as long as possible. But if you sometimes pursuing your goal may not really the benefit of the shareholders. What are the examples, for instance? So that's what I call a managerial opportunism, right? He may act like for the benefit of the companies, but at the end you realize that action was not for yourself. That was for himself or herself. Just tell me any example. Exactly, you got the point. You have to do fair business whenever you make the contract with other partners, right? You have to choose the best competitive partners by evaluating their ability objectively, but probably you may choose for yourself, right? Someone that you may know, or someone that you may have a relationship or so. What else? Yeah, that happens a lot. I think this graph really, where's the graph here? Like the study showed that CEO tend to expand their business a lot. Do you think so? If you are the CEO, do you really try to expand your business a lot? No? You said nothing.
I think in the case of managerial opportunism, if I was the CEO, I would say that it's more important to be stable and not expand the company. If I were, because it might have risks.
So if you are the CEO, you would be stable for the firm? What's?
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, yeah, you may some of the very good CEO try to stick to what their core value, try to stick to what they best, rather than spreading and expanding their business everywhere. But like on average, like some of the statistics show that lots of business CEO try to expand their business a lot, everywhere. Try to make their business very much complicated. Why? Yeah.
So they try to expand their things because by doing so they can show the accomplishments.
Yeah, they kind of show off, right? I did. I expand that much. Profitability is actually a matter of second, right? Just by looking at this, people see you just expand a lot of business. So like you are kind of a very talent and good manager by expand that a lot of business. Yeah, then maybe. But the point is, simply we can say that the size of the company is almost correlated with the amount of the salary. So the more you expand your business, the amount that you receive as a salary goes up, right? Simply means when you are on that position, one of the very simple way if you wish to receive more salary is that you just keep spreading your risk. You expand your risk everywhere, then your salary tends to go up. And you only on that position 2 or 3 years, then you just leave. That happened. Also, by expanding your business a lot, you make the business complicated, right? So, which means that you are probably in this case, the only one who knows about all these things, right? So, BOD cannot understand that many business because it is now too much expanded and too complicated. That means now the shareholders having kind of a hold-up problem with you. You are now the only person who can dealing with all that complication. Right? So by making things complicated, not easy, you can prolong your tenure in that position, but also you can increase your salary. So that's why a lot of CEO wish to conduct M&A, right? M&A means buying other companies. Buying other company means you just try to expand your business, right? M&A means you can feel like you are the conqueror, right? So also good for your salary and so on. So that is kind of a managerial opportunism. If you are the owner, also at the same time the CEO, it is now like spending your own money for the business expansions, and you won't be that easy to determine expanding that business that much because it is your money, not shareholders' money. Of course, shareholders' money is also your money, but so owner manager probably may not be that aggressive in expanding. They pretty much more contemplating for that business expansion, certainly. But again, that's the examples in like other Western Europe or European, the American case. Like Korea, for instance, you can see lots of business owners just keep expanding their business. That is actually a matter, another matter, which is actually beyond our discussion here. So another agency problem, the managerial opportunism is use of free cash flow. I think one of the rights of the CEO here is that you can determine how to spend money remain. At the end of, say, accounting year, certainly if your firm remain with some cash, then actually you can determine how to spend it. If cash remained, shareholder wish to get it back, what do you call it, 배당, right? Dividends. However, most of the CEO, instead of giving it as a dividends, as a distribution, they try to use that like leftover cash for another investment, whether you feel it is necessary or not. So that kind of a managerial opportunism happen a lot. So that's what I call agency cost, right? To monitor that wrong behavior of CEO, it requires another cost for the BOD, right? What I call a monitoring cost, enforcement cost, and so on. Right, in order to monitor the CEO here, you have to hire a more excellent BOD member. You have to construct more excellent BOD members, and you have to have a lot more committees, a lot of discussion, which may be time consuming sometimes. That is all part of cost. So you have to think about. So this is the solution for that matters, right? Ownership concentration. So like if the companies are big, like say Google or whatever you name, if you look at the structure of that big company's share, you just cannot see a dominant shareholders more and more this day. So ownership concentration means it would be very good if you have a largest shareholder. I mean, this is the case mostly in, say, USA, right? In Korea, you can easily find sometimes the dominant shareholders, but not that often in the American companies or European companies. So ownership concentration simply means that by giving more power to the dominant shareholders, by giving more authority to the dominant shareholders, you can use that dominant shareholders as a monitoring power and controlling power of the CEO here. Example would be like institutional shareholders, right? 국민연금, for instance. Nowadays, for instance, the dominant shareholders of Samsung, right? More than, if you count the share number of the, say, 국민연금, the 국민연금 has more shares than, say, Lee family sometimes. So, which means that the voting power or that kind of power may be more powerful for that institutional owners, like 국민연금, for instance. So that big shareholders should play more role for in monitoring the CEO's opportunism. Okay. I think with the time's almost up, so I think we have to a little bit talk more about the BODs, Board of Directors. What specifically they are endowed with some authorities, and also we talked about then how, say, Japanese people think what kind of a corporate governance system of like in Japan or Germany and so on. So countries does have a very different ideas of control and coordinating the management and the relationship between owner and manager things. So we are going to talk about that one too.